Welcome to episode 63 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Daddy, and joining me this week, a man whose brain is 3 dots to my 1 dot. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, Gaz. Thank you. I appreciate that. Does that mean it's more complex, but we don't understand it?
It's longer, more drawn out, more special
Yeah.
rules, a bit more annoying.
Yeah, more hurdles, more admin. Yeah, like just more maintenance, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, cool.
You're a 3-dotter.
What episode are we at?
63.
63. I feel like that's gone really slow. I feel like we were at 50 like ages ago.
As someone who had to edit all that together for 50, I feel like it was only like 2 weeks ago because I'm still recovering from that. So, yeah, it definitely feels that. No major news this week, although a listener has finished their Frosthaven campaign recently. And I want to have a little chat about that. So this was Weedy. Weedy mentioned in our Discord that he has finished his campaign and the overall emotions and all that kind of stuff was a bit like not sure. It's kind of hard to process a little bit because I can imagine ending something. We've been playing this for over a year. How would you feel if this kind of ended? Do you have an idea of how it would make you feel?
Nah, well, yeah, it's kind of like school. Like I remember school being like high school specifically. You'd be like going like, oh, just goes forever. Next year, at the end of every year in Australia, we work calendar year. That's your years, not like finishing in the middle of the year for some dumb reason. But you get to the end, and then you just know there's more school, like forever. And then I remember getting to the end of the last year of school and getting closer and going like, wait, what happens next year? Nothing. That's weird.
Yeah.
So I feel like at the moment we're in there's still forever of Frosthaven left.
Yeah.
But we're going to get pretty close where it's going to start seeming like we're coming to the end.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, wait, oh, hang on. What's post Frosthaven?
Do you think it'll be, I'm foreseeing us like in a situation, or me personally maybe, where it's like there's a bit of sadness there because the routine is kind of broken, but relief at the same time. I don't know. It feels kind of mixed trying to predict how I'm going to feel once it's done.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably accurate. Like relief that it's done in a sense, like because it's a really big undertaking. Sadness because it's been a lot of fun and there's no more. Yeah, I think they both make sense.
You know what's going to happen once we're finished? Once we're finally finished, we're going to have to release a review.
A review? Oh, yeah,
a review video.
Is the game any good? I mean, I feel like this is like reviewing an MMO, right? Like I remember back in the day when I played WoW and you'd see someone review WoW and they play WoW for 10 hours and be like, oh, that's not very good. And you're like, oh. I mean, like, it's like taking one bite of like, I don't know, a massive banquet of dinner and going like, yeah, it's okay, I guess. like you didn't really try everything or really anything. So I don't know. How do you review a game that takes you 2 years to play?
I don't know yet. It's definitely going to be interesting how we're going to put this together. I don't know how long it's going to be either. I mean, it's cool because I mean reviews came flooding out when Frosthaven came out, but we've been playing this over a year, and we know we've got some loyal listeners who have followed us on this whole journey. We've created the YouTube channel all based around this one game. It's going to be real interesting when we get to that stage where we actually have to talk about I can't even fathom what it's going to look like.
Yeah. It's interesting. There was a few weeks ago, or maybe it's a couple of months ago, I can't remember. Time is weird at the moment. There was someone posted a review. I saw it on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. A review of Frosthaven. And I think they were maybe like, I don't know, 2 years in or something like that. And they were kind of like, all right, well, I'm finally...
2 years in game or 2 years?
2 years, yeah, two Frosthaven years in the game. Yeah. I don't know how long they were playing it for.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were kind of like, here's my review of the game this far in. And it wasn't super detailed, but it went through all of the things. And it was kind of like, yeah, like it's interesting as to when can you give a good impression about what the game's about from more of a, not would you recommend, but, the traditional idea of what a review is for. Right? Like a review is usually like, hey, this is my experience with this thing in case you're interested in knowing more about it and or want to interact with it. And I feel like you can't really do that after like 10 or 20 scenarios. Like the most you can do is like, it's like Gloomhaven. Did you play Gloomhaven? If yes, well, then it's like that. If no, I mean, that's tricky. Like, how do you explain what it is? So yeah, I don't know when the right point is, because if we had done a review 10 scenarios ago, let's say 10 weeks ago, 20 weeks ago, we wouldn't have had a bunch of buildings which changed how you play the game, right? Like, imagine reviewing it without the challenge cards.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Like, and you can get them really early, or you might not get them really early. So do you need to include that and be like, oh, yeah, it's an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah.
Because unlike a normal review of something like a phone, you don't go, oh, I use this phone, but some features I didn't unlock yet.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not sure. Maybe they're really good. Maybe the camera's great. I just couldn't use it.
Yeah. It's a really good point. And also, like, we aren't reviewers in general. Like, we've never reviewed a game, right? So this will be the first time.
One did get 6 out of 6 turtles.
Sorry, we've never reviewed a game that wasn't at Game Mania, all right? We've never actually put our thoughts down from a whole game perspective, covering nearly every aspect of the game. So we don't. Me personally, I don't have anything to base it off. That's not going after someone else's review format or anything like that. It's coming up with a whole new, almost template and all that on its own, which is going to be really interesting. And I'm looking forward to sort of nutting that out with you.
Yeah, well, you reviewed Dark Souls and other games like that, didn't you?
They weren't reviews. They were look-backs. They were
look-backs at the game and your experience. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Okay, quickly. What are some bold predictions that you're going to make for the end of Frosthaven?
Oh. It will end suddenly. What are we? Bold predictions?
Yeah. A lot of things like football and all that, they make bold predictions for what's going to happen during the season or towards the end, or a headline thing. What it would be. amDirt wraps up just before the finale because they crack the shits with each other. There you go. That's
my okay. Like Mark is going to be kicked from the party before we finish Frosthaven. Yeah. Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see the return of the blink blade?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like every action, every turn, every round that Phil has on his drill, he says, "Oh, I missed the blink blade." Like, and it's kind of like it's an awkward relationship. You're like, oh, the drill's right there, dude. Like, at least wait until the drill's not here before you say that. Like,
do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think. Well, I mean, because we've got. I think with the math of it, someone has to replay a class, and depending on who retires in what order, I don't know. He might just want to play the blink blade. I don't know, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, he does drop in scenarios. Our blink blade. Sorry, our drill player. I miss my blink blade. So in nearly every session that we have. So it's probably
so. And I mean, if we do have a blink blade at the end, then I feel like the last scenario is going to be irrelevant, right?
Yeah, true. Very true.
Yeah, I don't know bold predictions. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's a tricky one. Have you got any?
No, other than the Mark getting kicked thing. I think that's not really bold, is it? That's just more expected.
No, poor Mark.
Let's do a little wager right now. Let's predict, what do you think will be the final campaign day? As in year 3 and then winter, because there's 10 days per season. And we'll see who's closer.
Oh, okay. So like, when will we finish it?
Yeah. And it's not something we can really delay or anything like that. We're aiming to try and do the final thing when there's no more scenarios left, right? I assume.
Look, I'll pick something. So there's 10 days in winter. I'm going to say day 8.
Day 8 of winter or summer? Yeah. Winter. Year 4.
Winter, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go with day 2 of winter.
I will add, though, that I think that there is some weird twist in here that takes you out of the calendar to finish it.
Oh, it's a bold prediction.
So, like, the way I kind of see it is that you can't, it's not like a timed game that you can get to the end and then it just says bad luck, right? Like, if you get to the end and it just says the end, you don't get to play the game anymore and you don't get to finish it. Good luck, go do something else. That, I'm sure, that would be like a really bad experience. So I almost feel like there's a point in which the game's going to take over and say, here is the last lot of things you need to do, and time is irrelevant now.
Mm.
And maybe that happens right at the end of the last winter, right? Like when you get towards the end, it starts unlocking the final scenarios. Like if you haven't got through all the campaign, or if you've been fucking around for ages, like we were for a bit, or the puzzle book, which apparently is supposed to be really critical to it. If you haven't done that, it's just like some guy comes in and says, "Here's the answer," right? Like here's the key. I figured it out, right? So. Yeah, I feel that will happen at some point, and the calendar will become irrelevant.
Wow.
And I don't know whether that'll happen at the end, or maybe you can unlock that at some point during the last year when you get into the final thing.
Yeah, okay. I like all this. This is very left field. I had never considered any of this, so that's a really good point, because there is actually a section event on the very last day of winter, year 4, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be bad luck. Like, if that's like, when you...
It could be game over, try again.
Oh, God. Like, in like old Nintendo games and stuff, when you'd actually finish it, like you'd finish it and you kill the last boss and it would go through the cutscene or whatever and then say game over. That was the most tilting thing ever. You're like, no. Game over means I lost. Like, not that I won. And I feel like a game over at the end. That's all it says. The Fortella guide just reads out and says game over. Insert a coin to play again.
Do you think we will be able to tank our morale enough to see the section event down there before we finish?
No, because we're trying actively now. Like, we can't, everything we do, the people love.
It might escalate, as in not get more morale, but like
that's what happens. They go, oh, what should we do next? And we're like, I don't know, cannibalism. They're like, yeah, we love cannibalism. This is great. Food for everyone. You're like, oh, okay. Not cannibalism? They're like, yeah, that's great. We hate cannibalism. Like, gain 5 morale, regardless of what you do.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Enough of that. On today's episode, we're going to be covering scenario 84. Here There Be Oozes.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. It's clever.
Yeah. No, it is. Wait, is it in reference to something? Or is it just...
Oh, it's just like on a map, right? They have a map and it'll be like, here there be dragons, or here there be trolls. Like when they have a ye olde maps.
Oh,
like,
ye olde
like
maps,
ancient,
gotcha.
Yeah, like ancient. Yeah, they might have like, whiskey things. It might even be a lot of the rings thing. I don't know, where they had the maps and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of a throw to the... Yeah.
Yeah, we need to record the whole episode now with ye olde speaking.
Yeah, I don't do accents. I know you do accents really well. That's why you're recording the Patreon voice recording thing.
No, I'm not. We're also going to have a little chat about frenemies. And I'm going to leave it at that. So before we jump into the scenario, I want to quickly cover the ancient coin situation. So at the very beginning of our session that we actually had before Gaz arrived, and actually before Phil arrived, it was just Mark and I. Mark always comes over a little bit early, and we just sit there because he's like bored at home and he wants to come over, and we just talk and catch up before everyone else arrives. And he apologized to me and said, I have not done much work, because he took a photo from all the ancient coins that we have had collected and he hadn't done anything with them yet. So I didn't even prompt him. He just said to me, oh, I'm so sorry, I've been busy all week. I haven't really done any of the ancient coin thing. And I was like,
you know why that is, right? Because he's worried he's going to get kicked from the group if it doesn't do his job.
If he gets kicked from the group, we'll never solve the puzzles.
Yeah, but if he doesn't solve the puzzles, we'll kick him from the group.
Yes, this works, I think. That 100%. So he basically got an A4 piece of paper, because we have those in Australia, and he started to write a whole bunch of numbers down. And he was turning the cards around and doing all sorts of stuff. And I was too busy getting ready, to set up the scenario for the actual session. And then he just goes, he passes me the paper and there's numbers everywhere. And he goes, it's either this number or this number. And I was just like, okay, that's not a lot of information. You've just taken a wild stab in the dark. And I checked one ordering of the numbers and it was nothing, because that section number didn't exist. And then I checked the other one and it was bang on the money, just like that. It took him like 3 minutes. Well, it felt like that. And I was just like, oh my God, you found it. And yeah, scenario kind of, well, not scenario, but well, ultimately, I don't know if I should reveal it or not. I'll just say that we completed it. And eventually, when we reveal something later on, it'll make sense. I'm going to go with that, just so that I don't upset anyone regarding that, because it's a pretty main thing.
It's pretty vague. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But
okay,
yeah,
cool.
good on you. Like, I don't want spoilers.
No. But no, that's one of the puzzles that we had done. I have no idea how we solved it, but I did take a photo of the piece of paper with all the scribblings on it, and I'll put that together in my how Mark mostly solved our puzzle book stuff.
Yep.
So, scenario 84. We had a road event. Do you remember this road event, Gaz?
No.
All right, this is Winter Road Event 49. This actually is an interesting situation that we're in, because we actually came across a cave, and we were like, we're going to, it's always a cave. We're going to take shelter or something, and we're going to wander through this cave. And as we got further and further in, it got hotter and hotter, or warmer and warmer, and there was a bit more light, etc., until we actually came across a keyhole. And the description of what we were seeing inside sounded very kind of familiar. It kind of automatically triggered a bit of a memory, and it was kind of like, there's a keyhole in the door. Option A, use the key on the door, or option B, mark the cave's location on your map and return at a later time. And someone made a comment about, I can't remember if it was you or Mark or both, wouldn't it be funny if this forced us to do a scenario right now when we had planned to do scenario 84?
Not just planned, it was set up and you'd already read as the rules.
Yes. So it was a very bold prediction and assumption, which caused us to mark it on our map and revisit it later, which was the right choice, because it did unlock a scenario, which we have pieced together is the second one to, I believe, now my memory is going to really test me, I think it's 104, the Solace, Palace of the Solace, or Temple of the Solace, or something like that, which was the scenario we did quite a few weeks ago, or maybe months, which was a elemental split down the middle, autumn on one side, spring on the other.
Oh, so it was that one?
I believe so. I haven't checked.
Okay,
I think it's the next one in the line, and it'll have a different elemental thing going on, which was really cool. It's really cool that we've unlocked yet another scenario to go into the list of scenarios that we need to complete.
Yeah. Add it onto the pile.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of these events, the ones that lead to instant surprises?
Yeah, I think that's cool. I really like it. Like, I think that you are on the road to go do a thing, and now you have to go do this one is fine. It's kind of sucks for the admin side of things if you've already set up the other one, which you kind of would do, but I don't think that's a problem. I think it's fine.
No, unless it's like you're about to do the finale of someone's PQ or something like that.
That's when it could be a bit awkward. Yeah. Yeah, like you're going somewhere deliberately to do a thing that you need to do, and then it's like, no, you go here instead. I'm not sure. But yeah, I can see places where it would suck, but I think it's cool. I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, I like them. I like surprises.
Because we've run into one of these before where we had like, I don't know, I'm going to make this is going to probably be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was like some time traveler dude was like, oh, quick, help, jump in this time portal thing. It's an emergency. We're like, yeah, we'll get right on that. He's like, okay. And it wasn't an immediate one. It was just like, unlock this scenario. It's like, oh, okay. Guess we'll go do that when we're good and ready.
Yeah, not an
I
emergency.
kind of feel like
define emergency.
It's like standing outside town with this portal, and every time we walk past him to go to our next quest, he's like, "Are you ready now? You ready now?" And we're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll come back." He's like, "Okay, all right, because it's an emergency. Remember, like my whole world is collapsing. You got to come and help me." It's like, yeah, we just got to go over there and just fight this ooze thing first. that's killing people's sheep. He's like, "Oh, okay, that sounds really dire."
Well, we did have it though once with, I believe it was a section event or something, where the boat came back in from Phil's PQ, and it was then and there, the boat was sitting there, and it was not something we could ignore. We had to do that scenario next.
Yeah, and I like that. I thought that was really cool. I mean, although I suppose, again, like a Force Link, you can just cheese it, right? Like, you can just, like, do it and fail, and then go back to Frosthaven and be like, nah.
It's
like,
true.
The boat's still sitting there on fire, the dude's still sitting there with his portal, the door's still sitting there waiting to get open. It's like they're all just on pause. So.
Yeah. No, I like it. All right. Scenario 84. Here there be oozes. Now, this was designed by Matthew G. Summers, and this person's on the Cephalofair team. as I believe they're listed as a rulebook editor, and they've also designed quite a few scenarios from Gloomhaven. And when I was researching a little bit of those scenarios, because I can't remember a lot of them, it was very hard to find a list of them. But some of them are some of the more loved and hated scenarios, interestingly enough. Almost to the point where when I was watching, like looking at certain Reddit threads about certain scenarios, they said as soon as they see designed by Matthew G. Summers at the top, they immediately groan and sigh and don't necessarily want to do it. So he's a very polarizing scenario designer, and he's also the writer as well.
I don't, until we did some of the, I think like the bombing run one, I don't think we'd ever paid attention to the designer of them. And I'm like, I know we do now, and you always check them, which is interesting. But I'm surprised so many other people do. Like enough that there's Reddit threads about people recognizing the name before they go into one, and that, like, I don't know, forming some kind of emotion in them.
Yeah. Like, I think Marcel's another designer who designed the Geminate and the Forgotten Circles expansion. I think Marcel cops a lot of like grief as well for very complicated scenarios with, you know, juicy rules and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean...
What's this dude's name?
This one? Matthew G. Summers.
Okay, all right. Matty G.
Matty G.
Matty G, okay.
Ultimately, why did we choose this scenario? We chose it because we wanted to catch an ooze, because we still don't have one yet, despite having a few scenarios with them in there, and it's a boss, so why not? The scenario goal, the scenario is complete when all enemies are dead. At the end of that round, we read a thing. Scenario effect, add -1s to your attack modifier deck. It was either 2 or 3. I only wrote down add -1s, so it's a number that's greater than 1. Special rules. Now I'm going to break this down a little bit, and we're going to have a chat just about each section just very quickly, okay? So the Elder Ooze, which has its own standee, has shield 4 for us. It's C for the characters. So that's 4 shield. But this is reduced by 1 for each other ooze on the map, normal or elite. We can't have more than 8 oozes on the map, the actual ooze standees. All right, it's limited, hard limited, all of that information right there. Whenever the Elder Ooze, though, exits a hex, we put a slime marker, which is a damage token in that hex. They represent slime. In addition, whenever any normal or elite ooze dies, they also drop slime. Can't be placed in a hex, the slime is anyway. The slime can't be placed in a hex that already has slime and doesn't alter if it's empty, featureless, or unoccupied. What do you think about the current situation when you read that it's got 4 shield, but it's reduced based on how many oozes are on the board?
That we need to have many oozes, which is never the right option.
No.
Whenever you have any oozes, you don't want there to be heaps.
Yeah. And we know oozes can split. We know that with mass amounts of oozes around, especially with multi-target and I believe poison and all that kind of stuff, it's horrendous. So it's kind of like it's a weird 2-button meme situation of what are we focusing on? Do we focus on, you know, all that kind of stuff?
Yep.
Whenever any character enters a hex with a slime, so this is where the slime mechanic comes in, they pick up the token and pop it on their player mat. Slime on a player's mat, all right, means every hex is difficult terrain, and you get disadvantage on all your attacks, which is super rough. But if a character gets healed, you get to remove 1 slime token. You also get to remove 1 at the start of your turn. And whenever any monster enters a hex with slime, remove the slime, and they heal for 2, according to our level. Because there's lots of oozes, and I'm just talking to you about this now, because there's lots of oozes, there's probably going to be a lot of slime.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Especially understanding that that I think it's not so much the difficult terrain thing, it's the disadvantage thing. Like
the disadvantage thing makes the most difference, yeah. And it, I mean, you know, spoilers, there was slime everywhere, right? Yes. And it also, one thing we found was that it meant when they were splitting with higher HP than they should, because they take 2 damage, then they split, but then the one lands in the space with a slime and then heals through, so it ends up being up. And it just that kind of chain reaction kind of created a lot of problems.
It can be very gross.
One thing, because it probably won't come up later, is that I feel that jumping shouldn't allow you to skip the ooze penalty. I feel like the slime penalty. I feel like the slime penalty should have been you treat each hex as difficult terrain and you can't jump.
Oh, yeah. Okay, way to make it harder.
Well, I mean, it makes no sense. You're covered in ooze, and that's why you're moving really slowly. Unless you can jump, in which case, then it's fine.
Looks like you may have to team up with Matty G to design some of the future. You can be the G in Matty G, right? So all normal oozes may enter the hex occupied by the Elder Ooze, and vice versa. If this occurs, the normal ooze dies, and the Elder Ooze performs heal X self, where X is the current HP value of the ooze when it died. All normal oozes focus on moving toward and entering the hex occupied by the Elder Ooze. Then find a focus as normal and perform any other abilities as if they had no movement. Which reminds me of the Bone Horde situation of pulling things in. But yeah, it's starting to piece it together from a thematic point of view of what Matty G is trying to do.
Yeah, well, they're all getting sucked into the ooze, right? Like, you hit him, they split out, and then they all move back in.
Yeah. And I was going to quickly add, what's interesting about this mechanic is that it changes the focus targeting from oozes, and that threw us off a few times.
Yep.
Which is, you're bracing for it only for them to move and then find their focus. And it's kind of like, oh, it caught us out.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that there is a space for that mechanic to get used a bit more because it does change things around. You know, like, I don't know, whether maybe it's a challenge card or just a mob type in general or something like that would be cool, where they're moving beforehand rather than, but yeah.
It was done with the unfettered, the orphan. When that thing spawned at the back of the room, it was going to always walk there, but then it was still going to, do his attacks and heals and all that kind of stuff. So there are, some parts where they do use it, but yeah, I think it can definitely be used more in just normal monster behavior for some crazy ass monsters.
I suppose they do use it a little bit in, like, pick the furthest away, right? Like, its focus becomes the furthest away. So yeah, but it definitely, you're right. It didn't happen heaps, but it did shake things up a little bit. And we were going to do their actions. We're like, whoa, hang on, no, it's got to move first. Then it picks, and it's like, oh, okay, this person's getting smacked instead. So
whenever any Elder Ooze, whenever the Elder Ooze, which is the boss, dies, instead of a loot token, it drops its standee. All normal oozes will still focus on getting to it. And if any normal ooze does enter it, place the Elder Ooze back into the hex with 0 health, and then perform the same steps of the normal ooze dying and Elder Ooze healing. So once you kill him, he's not dead.
No, it's like the T1000. All the little slime goblets go back together to form back up into him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we're fighting the Terminator. One of them. So as we're reading all these special rules and piecing it together in the beginning of the scenario, it was like painting such a cool picture of kind of what was involved. Whenever the Elder Ooze suffers damage, after any effects are resolved, spawn one normal ooze with the current HP value of the damage that was just suffered at any empty hex within range 3 of the Elder Ooze. If spawned on a hex with slime, it heals itself as if it entered it as normal. And this was the part where I was like, oh, cool, we can't burst this thing down. Doesn't matter how hard we're hitting it. No, it was the next bit, but still.
The next bit. Add the next bit, and then we can talk about it.
Yes. If the Elder Ooze would ever suffer damage greater than a normal ooze's max HP value, which was 8, it would suffer damage to equal this value instead. Yeah. And if an ooze can't be placed where the Elder Ooze suffers damage, because we've got all the standees out, the normal ooze with the lowest current HP value performs heal X instead, where X was the damage suffered.
Yeah, so this is the part, I think I mentioned it earlier, mixed up where some rules were, but like you're hitting it and bits are flying off, right? But the bits are flying off, but they're going to come back in. So if you don't do, and we talked about this before we started, if you don't do anything about the bits that fly off, right, then you're never doing any damage to this thing. Right? Deal 4 damage, it creates a 4 health ooze. If the next turn that ooze moves into it, it gets its 4 health back, you've done nothing.
Yeah, because you want to hit it hard,
Yeah.
which makes, let's say, max health and 8 damage. But an 8 damage ooze is harder to kill.
Yeah.
But you're doing more damage to the boss.
And the problem with it as well is that if you hit it and it flies off and then it moves through slime on the way back to the boss, then it gains 2 more health. So it actually, if you don't deal with it, it's gaining health. Like it's and this is the kind of thing we looked at to start with. Like, what do we focus on? And again, we'll talk about this later. But that max 8 damage, like in a hit, while it sounds really high, it kind of did slow us down a bit, like substantially, and not that because we all wanted to do 25 damage to it in a hit, but you were always really wary that it was like, okay, it's got 40 HP left, right? So this is gonna take us like at least 5 actions, like 5 attacks, and that's if they all hit for 8, which they're probably not going to. So yeah, it was kind of it was very much like okay, well, this isn't a thing we can just go, we'll just kill it in 2 turns. Like at any point, there wasn't we'll deal with this and then we'll just go kill the thing. Like it was, we have to slowly kill this, and we also have to then deal with the ads and that oozes, and it was starting to paint a really cool thematic visual picture, but also like a mind fuck of a puzzle.
Yeah, so much so, like amazingly so much so. So the boss has 2 specials. The first one, boss special 1, the Elder Ooze moves and attacks. Right, just a move and attack. The target of the attack must lose 1 item for no effect. So any persistent effects are no longer applied from the item. Then all characters adjacent to the Elder Ooze gains the slime. Nice little fun little thing there where, we've never had anything that did something to an item, which is interesting. Boss special 2 is it focuses on the farthest enemy and performs an attack 1 range 8. Attack plus 1 range 8, I should say. And then it will do a push 2 targeting all within range 1, which is also gross because there's going to be crap everywhere, including slime, and all of a sudden we're all out of position. And it's really unfortunate because I'm also sure boss special 2 is the faster one of the 2.
Is it, sorry, is it push 2?
Push 2.
Yeah, so it's kind of a, and I mean, this happened throughout the scenario where we needed to keep in mind that if you were next to it at the start of your turn, unless you were going at lightning speed, you needed to have a move, right? Because otherwise there's a good chance you're going to get pushed away. Just thinking about it now, if it pushes you into slime and you only had move 2, it stops you being able to switch your bottom action to do a move 2 because you can't make it.
No.
So it's like, again, a really clever design in hey, this is going to push you away if you're next to it, and it's probably going to mean that you can't get back in, which is more wasted actions.
Yeah. It's pretty gross. Yeah. Challenge card. We said fuck no. Oh no, we picked fuck no. That's right. All amDirt players may boldly refuse to accept any challenge cards in this scenario, which seems messed up already. Our pets for the evening was Tutu the Forest Imp and Wart the Lightning Eel, which is a very, probably our favorite combination.
That's S grade combination. Yeah. S tier.
Monster combinations were oozes and an Elder Ooze. First room setup, there was 1 ship tile, 5 traps spread out, boss in the middle with 4 elite oozes placed perfectly in a protection form sitting between the boss and our spawn location. Initial thoughts, guys?
We should have just nuked the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah. The site from orbit. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Aliens. So, yeah, look, reading through, like you were reading through that, the big giant purple box, and there was a massive purple box, right? It wasn't actually that hard. Like there's been scenarios with smaller amount of rules that have required us to reread multiple times.
Yeah.
This one seemed to make sense. It was like it was only a couple little finicky bits about the placement of things and stuff that we had to be reminded of, but it was like hit ooze has shields, more oozes, less shields, ooze heals, slime. Right, that's basically what it was.
Yeah.
And looking at it, I know we went back and forth on what we should do, but we had 4 elite oozes there. We had it, and it was like, all right, well, what's the plan? I don't think we anticipated how hard. I don't use the word hard. How much of a slog this was going to be?
No.
Like we probably should have, because when you read those things out that you've just read out to me again, I'm like, and I've explained that we knew that it was going to heal back basically as much damage as we did if we didn't deal with the other thing. But I still think we kind of went in with like, boss, right? You just you just right click it a bunch of times and it's dead.
Yeah, I think it was the that bit where I read out about the max amount of damage you can do to it, and then obviously creating more mobs. It's almost like an unlimited spawn in a way. Yeah, that's the part that I was just like, oh, this is gonna be good. I don't know how good. I don't know if I'm gonna hate it by the end of it. But right now on paper, I mean, like you said with the special rules, it was so big. But once you finish the whole box, it's kind of like this works. It's very clean. Everything's been thought out, and it just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was the thing. I think, and this is probably more of a hindsight, not an initial thought thing, but the theme of the special rules and the thing we're about to fight and how it all worked together, it was very tight. Like it was very, very intuitive in regards to the things that were happening. So I don't think it wasn't going into the first turn going like, ugh, I don't know what's going to happen so much or how it's going to happen. It was more like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. So yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, just as my initial thoughts, was I feel like the setup and just the way the whole boss fight, the whole scenario as a whole, it seems like groups can come up with maybe different ways of beating it, which is pretty cool. I think it requires a lot of coordination just from reading it and how you're going to tackle it. You need to be all on the same page. But there's like, if you had a group with lots of pure damage and pierce, you wouldn't be spawning like so many things. You'd be spawning one with each heavy hit and then dealing with the ooze, rinse and repeat almost, right? It's just very interesting that it feels like this scenario, there's a way that every class can feel useful.
Yeah.
It's not just a burst DPS kind of thing, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know if you want to talk about this now, about like this as a boss scenario. I'm not sure if that's a conversation we want to do now or later.
We'll do it at the end of just a couple of the points that I wanted to raise.
Yeah, cool.
About this scenario.
But I think as part of that, just to talk about, like, as you said, what everyone's rules were and how they change. And I think it did a great job of doing that, which we can flesh out a little bit later.
So talking points, because it's essentially a one-room thing. So the couple of things that it's a one-room scenario. So, we're not doing a blow-by-blow kind of thing. But the funny was very amusing because we had a group communication. This is something where you needed to work out what we were going to do and how we were going to tackle this. And it was Operation Blow Up the Elites, right? Deal with the elites because they don't come back and they still count towards, we don't want to leave them up. So I communicated with Phil, our mate Phil. I told him I was planning on bringing over one of the oozes so that he could wail on it. And he plans his whole turn accordingly. And at the beginning, I wanted to set up my usual setup, which is Quenched Rage. And then I was going to pull an elite ooze with the top of one of the other pull cards, I can't remember what it was, into the trap that was beautifully set up right in front of us. So I Quenched Rage, and I also created Grass Earth. Now, this is 2 weeks in a row where I have created an element that the enemy in the room was about to use to add target, which is really, really unfortunate for me because I couldn't pass up not making Quenched Rage a thing. I had to do it. So the ooze pull a card, conveniently, that was a range 3 attack 3, target 2, poison. But if grass is consumed, they target 3 instead, which is awesome for everyone involved. So just very quickly, I did pull one over to me, exactly like I said for Phil. And before I pulled it, I did my attack, which was a Quenched Rage hit, like one of the minus ones. It was garbage. And I pulled a whole bunch of modifiers and one of it because of the rollings, and I had push modifiers in there, which was really cool. So we worked out that I could push it into one of the further traps and then pull 3 into the other trap that was right in front of me, and it killed it. And I didn't expect to kill it. Phil asked me if I was going to kill it, and I said, hell no, it has got way too much health. And then Phil basically pulled the disappointed dude at the sports crowd meme. He just sat there and looked at me like, really? Like, why? And then, yeah, he did nothing, which was just fun. And then, proceeded to take the 3 target ooze hits. Although he doesn't care about poison because he's on a drill and he can take a damage to ignore it, right?
It takes damage. But yeah, I mean, because it's just, and I think, again, it was hilarious how it all played out. But the funny thing is that these, again, like last week, these are all choices that you have the option of opting out of. So, like, you could have not made the grass, right? Which stops them all from attacking an extra target with poison. You also could have chosen to not push it into the first trap and only pull it into that because that's optional. Like all of these things were optional, but it's like you do them and then you're like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. And like, but you chose that to happen. That was your decision. It's like, yeah, which is fine. Again, it's fine because I think you maximize damage. I mean, you blew up one of the oozes in one turn with a attack 2 or something like that, right? Like, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I didn't care because it was only Phil's turn you were booking. I was a little bit like, do you need to create that grass? Because that's again.
But it's quenched rage. I have to.
Can you go later? Or are they both 2 really early cards?
I can't remember. Oh, no. The pull is the early card. The pull is the early card.
Okay.
So the one that makes fire. Because I want to make fire and I want to make earth.
What's quenched rage? Is that?
Oh, I don't know. Something? I can't remember.
I bet it's like 80. And you're like, this whole time you could have just been. Yeah, yeah. Because maybe not so much for the like not giving the like monsters an element to eat and destroy us with, but more so because you're creating it so that you can use it. Maybe going late on that first turn might be a good idea so that you don't lose your element. But anyway, it was a funny first turn.
I didn't know they were going to pull that card. I forgot what card they had. I didn't know they were going to pull the always consume to add target. We'll see if it's 3 weeks in a row next week.
But if you go late, then that is out of the window. It can't happen.
Yeah, but then I might not get it off properly.
Anyway, it was good. It was good. It was a good first turn. One was dead. I moved up and poisoned the other 3. Got hit by everything. Went down to like 2 HP. I was like, yep, cool. I was in my new robot thing, which lets me give everything poison. So everything had poison. But the other thing that does as well is it means that I can't heal at all. I'm immune to heals. So.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I was down to like 2 HP going like, oh, okay. I've now got to get another robot out and then also get into that other robot so that I can so I can start healing, which was fun. But yeah.
Well, you saved everyone else from taking because the rest of them weren't close enough to sort of hit us. I think one was still within range, but you single-handedly stopped all of us taking because it was 3 targets for some reason. You stopped all of us taking hits, so it was really good of you. And then ultimately, the following few rounds, we just absolutely blew up the elites. We blew up all the elite oozes. Mark got in there with AoE claps. Phil did retaliating kind of stuff and poison ignoring kind of stuff. And yeah, it was really, really cool. And then it got down to fighting the actual boss itself. So we had a nice clean board and we had to fight the boss, who now had 4 shield. And we spent the next 2.5 hours,
Yeah, that's it. It was 7 o'clock. I remember looking at the time, going like, "Oh, okay. Do we want to start getting the next scenario ready? Because
you did say that
we're gonna be done before dinner gets here, right? Like this is and yeah, we did. Like we then proceeded to spend the next almost 3 hours wailing on this boss.
It felt very like we've got it down. We've got the mechanics down. We've got the thing down. We do a bit of chip damage. We get an ooze out. We kill the ooze. Rinse and repeat. It was nice and easy. And then we decided, look, we've only done like 20 odd damage in like the first 5 rounds or something. Maybe we need to have a chat about letting some oozes stay up, spawning them further away, right?
I think the catalyst to that was there was like I reckon it was turn 3 or turn 4, which was like the turn after we cleared the board, or maybe it was the turn after that. And it was like a bit of a weird, like, I think Phil didn't attack because he was healing himself or doing something like buffing himself. One person was resting, you missed, I think, or something like that. Or maybe I was resting and you missed and then Mark punched it. So we all had a turn and you were like, so did we all have our turns and we did like 4 damage, right? Like, and it was like, yeah, but like there wasn't that many people attacking and you missed. So it's not that bad. But I think that kind of gave everyone a little bit of a sense of urgency of like, oh, maybe we're playing this too cautiously.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that then I looked at it and went like, okay, well, I've got I had a robot out that had Pierce, right? So it was going to get through the shields. Even if it had 4 shields, it should get through those shields. I can then jump in that robot to give myself Pierce 5. So I kind of said, look, I'm going to go in that and I'm going to do damage to it. Like it might only be like lots of 1, but that's fine. That's what we want, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to go really early and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to just shred its shields. So everyone line up attacks to do. And we did, right? We did it. We did that. We jumped in. We did it. And then there was a split, which was great because most of them died.
Yep.
And then we did that again.
Mm-hmm.
And they split, and it was okay because most of them died, but then most of them didn't die. And so then there was like 6 on the board, and we're like, but this is great because we're like wailing into it. And compared to that last turn where you were like, oh no, we only did 4 damage. We're like, we've done like 20, 30 damage to this thing in 2 turns. We are killing it. And then the oozes went, I think, was it round 9? I think you marked down in your notes.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It was a round, and you're like, oh, and that's when it turned.
It 100% turned. It was smooth sailing. It was GG easy. It was set up the next scenario. And in one beautiful round, all the oozes on the board, they pulled the ability card, the one that they did in the first round, target 3, because Earth was up. I mentioned, can we consume it or anything? No one could. And they did the target 3, range 3, attack 3 with poison. And we had oozes everywhere. I was in range of nearly all of them. And in one round, I discarded 3 cards and everyone's health. Like if you see those MMO healing bars on the left-hand side, they all just drop just like that. And it was the turning point of the scenario.
Yeah. Well, and they all just absolutely wrecked us, and they were all still up. So there was like still 8 on the board, and we were like, ugh. What do we do? Like we're just gotten wrecked. Like everyone was low health, and none of them were really within range of dying. We didn't have that opportunity. It's not like they were all sitting on 1 or 2 health. So we're like, hopefully they draw split again. Like,
well, this is actually the moment where I probably was like, wow, I just lost 3 cards. How about another one? And I finally played the bottom of Swelter. And finally, I had 4 hazardous terrain pieces down, 7 targets on the board, and it was wonderful. It was just, it was really cool to finally get a good use. Well, it was my first use out of it, and do a whole bunch of damage and kill off a couple of the stragglers. But yeah, ultimately, just our current position and losing as many cards as I did, I can't remember what your situation was like, but I was starting to get a little bit nervous.
Yeah. Oh, well, like I was looking at everyone's health and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting real nervous here because like we're all low. Like Mark went from like 20 health to like 3 as well in one round. And I mean, part of that was probably because he was eating his own face because we felt confident. So he was able to take damage to keep cards when he has his turn, as the fist does. And he was probably maybe playing a little bit aggressive with that because he's like, we're in a good spot, which is fine. It was the right call. Nobody expected us to all take collectively like 80 damage in one round.
Yeah.
Right. Although we should have, because we knew that's what the oozes do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. And I think it put everyone in a weird spot. I think there was I used my robots to tank a fair bit of it as well.
Your robots, mate. Your robots. Your Tesla. I keep calling it a Tesla coil or something because it reminds me of that. That guy sat in the back and we kept spawning them around him whenever we had to spawn one from the damage within range 3. We kept spawning them around him. Not only did he stay alive, he kept cleaning them up, which is amazing.
Well, I think for the 2 turns in a row that they split, he was next to like some of them. So we kept just like, he was killing them and then they were splitting and then more of them were coming and then we'd hit the boss and then we'd like, well, let's put it over there next to the thing. So it was just kind of constantly zapping everybody. So yeah, it was doing work.
Yeah. There are probably more loot tokens that the game came with. Well, there is, because we actually ran out of loot tokens because of everything that was dying. The board was covered in loot tokens. No one brought a loot one, which was really interesting. Oh, did you?
I did.
Did you use it?
No, because I had a battle goal that said don't loot at, but I misread that battle goal that said do not loot with end of turn looting. Meaning I could have been running around using my loot one and I would basically be able to come back and buy Frosthaven.
Yeah.
There was so much loot.
We had to use proxies.
It was gross.
Just to have it. Some stacks were like 5 tokens high. It was just insane.
Yep.
So we managed, we actually do manage. We get to a stage where we're managing the board again and we're all staying alive and those meters, healing bars, health bars are just hovering around, 5 to 10 around there. And we actually do down, after a few, we had that many amDirts, by the way. I missed like 3 real crucial. The amDirts in this were so crucial. There was always on a very important hit, whether it be a double attack on Quenched Rage or melted armor or something that I really needed to land. And I was probably the biggest culprit. I think I landed 3 on the boss. That was just, they were the ultimate feel bad amDirts. We haven't had in a long time where we really needed to land those hits. And it
Phil
just
missed one.
sucked.
Phil missed a clutch one as well. So
Yeah.
I think you missed 3, 1 early on, and I think then 2 when it was getting a bit dicey. And Phil had a big hit that was like, okay, cool, this will be fine. I was like, oh, that's not fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
We do eventually plan a final hit on the ooze. I missed again with the melted armor. That was one of the important ones. But luckily the guys had a backup plan and they also down it. And the Elder Ooze goes down. But the scenario is not over because now we have to clean up all the normal oozes. Now, I don't know what happens. It probably is my card economy because I was just low from the 3 I had to discard from that early round. But it was at this stage where I can't live any longer and I go to loot piles, collect slime and die, basically.
Yeah.
And
I was already dead. Like I died the turn before that. Yeah, because I had 3 cards left and I was going to be fine. And then the boss targeted me with his special one because that's the furthest away person.
The long range thing, yeah.
And drew a crit.
That's right.
And so killed me. And so I had to discard a card. Like anything else, I wouldn't have had to discard. And I had to discard, which meant that I didn't have enough cards to rest, which means that I died, which was annoying because I had 2 robots out, which would have gone early and hit all the oozes. And again, just kind of slowly chipped away at some of that stuff. So it was like a decent chunk of hits that would have just like done a little bit more to make us feel comfortable. I'm like, oh, that crit's not a good time. I guess I'm dead. So so come into that turn, right, where we killed it. I'm dead and you're dead now. So it's again back to Phil and the Phil and Mark show.
The Phil and Mark
drill
show.
And fist.
Yeah.
But this was looking a little bit more dicey than when we had to kill that altar when they were together again, because I think we still had like 6 oozes.
It was about 6,
table. Phil hadn't used his shutdown thing yet, but it still was like they have 1 shield, right? They hit really, like if they drew their multi-target attack, like looking with the 6 of them on the board, we're screwed. Like that, they're all going to hit both of them.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like, I don't know. I guess we just flip cards and wait and see.
Yeah, watching as spectators was really hard. I mean, Gaz and I tried to work through all the admin to make things move along quite nicely. But it was so stressful because this was an unbelievably RNG heavy part of the game. It was, well, the whole scenario technically is, but this just amplified it ultimately because every single time we next round and put our initiatives in and wanted to see whether Mark or Phil could even approach them safely, the card that they would flip, if it was a deal 2 damage and split, amazing. If it was the loot card, amazing. If it was any of the ranged attacks, the boys would just not go in.
Well, I think the turn after they downed the boss, they actually did draw the range 3, attack 3, multi-target one, but and that caused both to not go in.
Yeah.
Like I think Phil had his cards. He's like, if I go in, I'm going to hit by like 6 of them. And Mark's like, I'm not going anywhere near it. So I think they moved around, looted a little bit. Phil got like hit twice, I think, because he couldn't get out of range or something like that. But it was really like it messed turns up because they were all sitting on one side. So it was kind of, they needed to approach. But yeah, they were trying to go after them, I guess. But just was really tricky.
Yeah. And Phil's drill eventually does. He plans it though. He knows it's going to happen. He does his shutdown thing, which allows him to take. This is so clutch by the drill, by the way. It's so cool that he can go back into his deck, into his lost pile, and fish out 4 perfectly, chosen cards to fit the exact situation we're in.
Yeah,
which is
it's
really cool.
It's funny because I heard I've seen it discussed a little bit just on that ability of people thinking that it's not great. And I can see that, right? Like it's, you exhaust. And so it's not like a power thing you can activate throughout the whole scenario and get a lot of benefit from. But I mean, compared to some of the other 2-tick perks that we've talked about, like that are once per scenario, it's quite strong.
Yeah.
Like some of the other ones that you either don't come into play or are just very, very situational. I mean, we've seen it come into play at least twice now since he's been on the fist. Sorry, the drill. So yeah, it was really useful.
Yeah, Mark and Phil essentially coordinated extremely well, and they were pointing out targets, they were calling things, and they worked really well together. And they eventually cleaned up the rest of the oozes, which was a big relief.
Thank God.
Absolutely exhausting. So we did win, which was brilliant. We didn't, because we were thinking towards the end. I actually wasn't sure if we were going to win that. Like, I wasn't even feeling overly confident. It was feeling like it was going to be on next week's episode, the ooze thing again, or in 3 months' time, a revisit to the ooze thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the last few turns, I was like, I didn't think we were going to be able to do it. It was like, there's just too many on too high health to do it. Because the other problem with it is that because there was slime on there, they kept moving into the slime, and the slime was healing them. So with the shield, it's just, anyway, I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm doing this scenario again next week. Like, in the moment, I was like, we are going somewhere else, and we will come back to this when I've completely forgotten all about the scenario. And we're like, oh, this will be interesting again. Or maybe we'll just go and bring a Blink Blade back.
Yeah, I think that would work, because he could do 8 damage to the boss, do 8 damage to the thing that just popped out of the boss, do 8 damage again to the boss, just rinse and repeat, right?
Yeah, well, because it's capped at 8 damage in a hit, and the Blink Blade will hit 3 or 4 times in a round. I mean, like, that's 24 damage a round. It only has 120 health. You can kill it in 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Right? Like, done.
So our rewards were, we got an item, it was an ooze vial, which seemed rather shit. And we got a sticker. I'm not going to reveal what kind of sticker.
Garbage.
Yeah. I'm not going to reveal what kind of sticker because I don't know what it means yet. And if people are searching for something, go do the ooze thing.
Shit sticker.
What were your thoughts on Scenario 84, Gaz?
I was torn. Actually, I said this, like, I don't think I've been more torn on whether I liked or disliked a scenario in all of Gloomhaven and Frosthaven.
Wow.
I think, like, to boil down my thoughts without going on a 10-minute kind of rant about it, I thought thematically it was amazing. I thought the mechanics for the theme were amazing. Like, that was a just absolute home run. Like, really, really good. It was a lot of fun to play, but there was a lot of not playing. And that's the part that I find not fun. So you talked about many loot tokens. Okay. So the problem was that doing the admin for this wasn't just going through the oozes, which was its own problem in itself, but being really fiddly with, like, okay, well, there's another loot token on top of that pile, and then there's a slime token on top, which is a damage token, and then there's a slime on top of there, right? So that's now all balancing. And then when something would die or say they split, you're going through the list. All right, number 1. All right, number 1's there. Okay, number 1 takes 2. Okay, it's dead. Okay, remove that. Put a loot token. Put a slime token. Okay, cool. Number 2. All right, cool. It takes 2. It splits. Okay, well, it goes to here. Oh, but now it heals. Okay, wait. So that goes. So it's on 2. No, it's on 4. Okay, cool. Goes there. Remove slime token. That process, right, too many times was not playing the game. Right? Like, that's doing spreadsheet admin work, right? Now, that's the part that I didn't like, but it was a small part. And I don't think it was enough to make me go, this wasn't a good scenario.
Yeah.
Because everything else.
It's a very fair point.
The boss mechanics, like the way that it worked, again, I felt like it was pulling me in with the theme. Everyone had stuff to do. We didn't feel useless. This is what I was going to talk about, which, again, I'll touch on. That there was always something to do. It's like, okay, I'm going to kill a slime, I'm going to kill the boss, going to try to do this. So all of your cards were kind of in play.
Yeah.
So I think from that, I would still say it's a really good scenario. I'm probably biased on whether I like it or not by the fact that we finished it, because I feel like if we had failed, I would have been maybe like I didn't like it as much. But trying to remove that out of my bias, I definitely think that overall it was quite good.
Yeah. I love this scenario. Like, I normally hate a lot of admin, just like too much in scenario 14 and other ones when there's a lot to deal with. And on paper, this should be one I would really dislike from that reason. But like scenario 28, which was the secret meeting, and we had to control the 2 factions that were hurting each other. I actually didn't mind it in that one, and I really didn't mind the admin in this. I don't 100% know why. I was really, really invested in this, probably because it was so tense and because it was so difficult. So I didn't see it as busy work or not fun. I saw it almost as a tense, breather so that I don't have to worry about what I'm doing. I have to worry about what they're doing so that I can do what I need to do next round or something stupid like that. I really didn't mind it. This scenario also is totally RNG heavy, which is going to turn a lot of people off. But what that does for me is it creates a humongously tactical one where you constantly have to shift plans because of everything that's happening. So because you may get luck out and they just split, or loot, or whatever. Or you may get on the other side of it, which is they never split. They're just doing damage the whole time, and it's really awkward. It's so messed up how RNG swingy this scenario is because you're only facing one mob, and there's only one ability deck ultimately happening if you don't include the boss one, which didn't feel too impactful other than when it crit you. But having to switch up your play all the time and trying to find the right timing to go in and hit the boss or hit the actual oozes itself, I really didn't mind it. It actually reminded me a little bit of Spirit Island, where the event cards throw a wrench in your plans, and you have to change your plans kind of on the go. You have to watch out for this, watch out for that kind of thing. It also requires an absolute buttload of teamwork, which I don't think other scenarios, they all do, but not to the extent that this one does. So if you're not good at coordinating just plans with your team and everyone's a hero kind of thing, you're probably going to have a bad time. Despite,
that's right. Yeah,
I was going to say, despite loving this scenario, I wouldn't want to play it again. So yeah.
It's a good couple of points there that I'll just go back over. Like the teamwork thing, 100%. I feel like people who can't work together or can't discuss or plan would just hate this scenario if it got out of control, because there is so much, like, especially when it's got shields, right? Needing to coordinate how people do things in what order. The other thing as well with the RNG, I don't know, it is very RNG heavy. I don't disagree with that. I feel like the impact of the RNG has a different, say you use the word impact again, on the difficulty of the scenario. Like if I think about 22, right, where we got, they drew the summon thing every turn for like 8 turns. Basically made it impossible. Like, we just couldn't deal with that many monsters, right? In this, I don't know if oozes have a combination of cards that you could get RNG'd, like, terribly. Like, I feel like even though we kind of got some bad RNG with some misses and what they chose and stuff like that, it was also a lot of decisions that we made, right? Like, whereas again, if I take us back to 22, that was out of control, right? Like, it didn't matter what we did. There was the fact is that they were spawning 6 extra monsters every turn, and it was just becoming stupid.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is like RNG will impact. It's like impact your experience and how you do the scenario. Like, is it going to be a focus on the boss? Is it going to be a focus on the ads? Is it going to be a heal people up? Like, it's going to change how it's played, which is great and very heavily RNG. But I don't think you could have a really bad time with it. If anything, you could probably have a really easy time. Like, imagine they just pick split every time, right? If they alternated between split and loot, they basically do nothing for the whole game and you just win.
Well, both their reset cards of oozes are split, right?
Have they got 2 split ones?
They're both resets as well. So yeah.
Okay. So they could have, if we pulled it.
If it was like the wave thrower scenario, yes.
Yeah, we could have just sat there watching them split forever. Yeah. So I feel like, yes, 100% it's RNG, because that's oozes are RNG heavy. But I think it's the ordering of it. Like, if they pull a attack 3, poison, range 3, 3 targets, and then they pull 3 splits in a row, it's way, like, not as bad as if they pick 3 splits in a row and then pull that one. So yeah, it's good. But no, it's cool. I'm glad that you really liked it. Like, as I said, if someone else was doing all of the admin, and I think Mark mentioned it actually, is it like digital version of this? If say this Frosthaven gets turned into a digital game like Gloomhaven did, and you had this scenario, it could be really cool because you wouldn't have to do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's all just there. So, I agree. That's good. Good scenario that I would never want to do again.
Yeah. Matty G, making us happy.
Well, is this one of the ones that's polarized on the good side?
I don't know. I couldn't find much on this, to be honest. There's probably more talk about it in the Discord, in the Outpost Discord. But I haven't actually seen that. From a natural Google search, I couldn't find a lot of conversation about it. So it also may be one that people didn't unlock because they didn't get that. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, is this a random side scenario? Is it job
I
posting?
think it's a job posting.
Oh, that's right, because it oozes killing sheep. So yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. That was the other thing that I think was a bit disappointing was that the rewards were garbage, right? Like a bad item and like, okay, the sticker might be really clutch. Like it could be super important for something, which is great. So maybe we'll reflect on this conversation and go, oh, the reward was really good because it gave us a sticker that was awesome. But
mate, it could have been morale, okay?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's not as bad as it could have been.
No. Ormy's dead. More deader than ever.
Totally dead. I'd say this is the worst scenario that we've had for Ormy.
It'd have to be. It'd have to be.
Yeah, he's just so dead.
Now, at the very end of our session, we generally go outside, say goodbye to each other, have a last powwow, etc. Before everyone goes and we end the night. We forgot that during the scenario, we caught an ooze. Mark caught an ooze. And while we're talking about it outside, we didn't even look at the card or anything like that. Did you look at the card?
No, I didn't.
Do you know what it did?
I took it out of the envelope and I put it aside. I wanted to leave it for Mark.
Oh, to look at it?
Yeah,
I was going to read that now. Because I haven't looked at it either. Oh, okay.
No, you totally can.
Yeah. So we spun the wheel outside while we were talking. And funnily enough, it lands. And I thought we could go a whole campaign without having to do this.
And it's fitting because it's so perfect. Absolutely perfect.
We got Dwarf 74 as our ooze in the campaign. And let's find out what it does. Because I still have no idea.
I'm going to guess. It can't be loot because we have the piranha pig for looting.
That's true.
And it can't be shield because they I'm going to maybe something poison. So every character in initiative order gets to poison an adjacent enemy.
Okay. I'm going to go with every character takes 2 damage and splits into another version of themselves. I think that'd be awesome. Hopefully it's that.
That sounds balanced.
It's thematic. Create 1, 2, or 3 hex obstacle anywhere on the revealed map.
Do we have a cricket noise?
So it's not even all of us in turn from the sounds of it. It's just when we pop it, we just do that.
Create 1, 2, or 3 hex obstacle on the board.
Okay. Well,
I guess we have to use him next week. That's the rules, right?
Yeah, it's fitting that it's rather crap.
Oh, actually, did we forget to do that?
Do what?
Didn't we caught the snow imp last week?
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, but we didn't bring it.
Oh, we didn't bring it. Well, that's your fault. You're the one that's wrangling up the pets.
I'm not the Pokemaster here. I'm not Ash out in my venture. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, next week, we're doing the Frost Imp and the Ooze, right? Yeah. Okay. So
perfect.
Hopefully it's not one that we need pets for.
So community-wise, it was mostly rules questions that we could actually see. Battle goals, we actually had duelists never exit a hex adjacent to an enemy except through forced movement. Who had that? No one. I didn't hear anyone.
Bill, I think.
Was it? Did he get it? How could he not exit a hex adjacent to an enemy? Oh, he would. Yeah, that's. Oh, it sounds actually rather easy because he's always going to be adjacent to an enemy, right? But still, he needed to be in situations of movement towards the end.
I think it was Phil. I'm just guessing here. It wasn't me, and I don't think it was Mark. So, and you're saying it's not you, so it's just process of elimination.
That's true. You had Pauper, which we covered. Never collect a loot token from end of turn looting. Oh, how rich you could be.
Oh, so sad. And the thing is, I looked at it so many times, I just didn't really reread it. And there's so many because my loot 1 is transfer then loot 1. So when my little robot was sitting there just absolutely just munching all these oozes coming at him, I could have gone into that robot and just like lapped up everything.
Yeah.
And then jumped right back out so that it was still there to keep farming more loot.
You probably could have done this a few times, yeah.
Like many a times,
So many times, guys.
So many times.
I had a weakling. Become exhausted before any other character. I keep picking this, and I keep failing it because Gaz beat me to the punch. And it's really funny whenever when I have this scenario, I think I even mentioned, I think Phil was like, I'm going to exhaust him or whatever. And I was like, well, why? What's going on? Like my ears prick up immediately, and I immediately go into problem-solving mode. Like, how can I help you not exhaust Phil? Because I need to. But this time it was Gaz that booked it.
Hey, sorry, I wasn't planning on it. I just got crit for like 8 damage or 10 damage or something like that. So
that's true. Someone had opener. It might have been Mark. Kill the first enemy to die in the scenario. Well, I booked that person, so I'm terribly sorry. DPS. Okay, cool. So we had Gaz on 65. We had Phil on 88. We had me on the media at 101, and we had Mark on the fist on 106. Lots of damage to be spread around, which is very, very cool. Damage taken, I took 39, which was the lowest, followed by Phil on 47. Mark took 55, and Gaz on 72. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, a lot of damage for someone with not much health.
Yeah, well done. Healing-wise, I healed 10, Gaz healed 11, Phil healed 34, and Mark healed 41. So, yes, a fairly good wrap-up to a gross scenario. We had our outpost phase. We didn't finish it. We only did the outpost event, but the rest of the phase we'll have to do at the beginning. So I'll cover the outpost event now. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, Zane.
So this
Crazy
was
ideas.
Winter Outpost Event 10, and it was Zane.
Yeah, wants to invest, right? In like some kind of meat.
Oh, was it a meat thing, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, he had a business opportunity for us, and he's a bit of a crazy person. He's the town, what do you call it? Town dumbass?
Entrepreneur? Oh, okay.
Oh.
Probably both.
Okay. Yeah. And ultimately we had to make a decision, and this was actually really cool. I'm not going to explain the exact decision we made, but it was interesting in that there was a thing where you had to invest money into it. And then it actually said, add this section to the calendar in 1 week, or add this section in 1 week. And that's the first time a resolution has given us a choice that we have nothing to really base it on because they're just numbers.
Yeah, it's just 50-50.
An actual coin flip.
Yep.
So I know we chose the wrong one.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to working out what that wrong one was.
Yeah.
All right. Frenemies, guys. Frenemies. Is there such a thing where a class or a strategy or something like that someone is playing can be less fun for other people at the table?
In general and Frosthaven?
Let's go with Frosthaven for now.
Yeah, I think so.
So give me an example of this.
Look, I think this kind of came up when we were discussing, early on some of my turns for the Prism taking a while. And
we predicted that was going to be potentially the case, especially when you started, because it was a minefield, right?
And I think like me trying to optimize and not pay it, but just actually read cards and work out where there are. And probably not so much this scenario, but I know the last scenario where if I've got 2 or 3 robots on there, it's not just working out your cards, but it's also then working out me going into the robot to do my thing. But then I also have to consider where they're going to go and then also consider where the monsters might go. Right. So picking go into here and do this thing, it might not work because there's 2 things that have to happen before I get my turn. Right. So I think, there might have been a little bit of overanalyzing it. Maybe I'm still just internalizing. I'm not sure what it was. But yeah, I did kind of notice that it was taking a while, and then that's impacting people at the table, right? Like as much as it is just, well, that's the character. It's if one person is playing in a way, whether it's on purpose or their fault or not their fault, doesn't really matter, but it's detracting from 3 other people's experience. I think that's a negative, right? And it doesn't mean it's not the end of the world and don't do it, but it's definitely something that's a negative feeling. I mean, and probably, that that kind of also appears in other games, like which we can talk about later. But yeah, I think it definitely could be a thing in Frosthaven, or at least elements of it. And it's not just based on turn length. Like I think there's other things that could be impacted.
I think we need to be clear that this is probably more so like the group or the player. It can trickle into a class that enables it in a way. So it's not so much the class is doing this, but it's a combination of different factors. And I'm curious about other groups out there if they've got a situation like this, like you're the prison player or even a bone shaper trying to organize all their pets, or something like a Geminade who's trying to, you know, juggle their forms and their complicated cards and trying to make sure they're in range and all that kind of stuff. It can create this this feeling of well, it could be a timing thing, right? Where they could be taking a long time, or in the case of a Geminade, they could be harming their teammates because some of their abilities cause them to harm their teammates, which can cause other people to not have a good time, right? In that, and it's just trying to get like another good example is the Blink Blade. All right, we've talked about this in the past. It's just the Blink Blade's a character that people sometimes say is a little bit overtuned. And sometimes that can have a negative effect on other people at the table, which becomes a group thing. But this is kind of where, I mean, this is the way we feel about certain, I guess, classes and I don't know, factions and all that in various games. Are they a good thing for the game? Are they a good thing for the group? Is it more of a just deal with it kind of situation? Like, I guess, how do we navigate this minefield of problematic potential classes or systems?
Yeah, and I think in co-op games it's very different than if it's a versus game, right? Like if you have an overtuned oppressive faction in a TI game or an area control game, whatever it is, then it's bad for the game because it feels bad when one person just has an unfair advantage, right? In a co-op game, it's usually not that bad because it's like not just that you're working to the same objective, but you can kind of share in somebody's like, oh, that was awesome, right? You did a really awesome thing. I think when it goes over that point, right, and this is from an overtuned perspective, is when that's then detracting from how much other people get to do stuff, right? It's almost like it's not quarterbacking, but it kind of has the same impact as quarterbacking in a sense where one person is doing far more work than everybody else. And that's just because they have far more capability. Now, I think that happens probably naturally in Frosthaven because you have different levels. So, like, I mean, Mark's level 9 on his fist now, right? If we were all level 3 or 4, he'd be doing way more than us regardless of what characters we're on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, like, that's going to naturally happen. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. It's just an ebb and flow of the game. But I think when one class or character can do more mostly all the time, and then it detracts from other people's abilities to do anything, right? That's when it could start having that flow-on effect.
Yeah. What about, because I hear more about this issue in Gloomhaven. Not that it's an issue. Not that it's an issue. There are a lot of people out there who prefer Gloomhaven to Frosthaven because it takes on a bit more of a OP Diablo style run through, kill everything, CC everything, all that kind of stuff. But there'd be classic examples of this in that game due to how OP some of the characters were, right? So if you're running in and there's like characters, I don't know all the characters, right? But I just heard that there are ones where one person can literally blow up an entire room while another one's CCing the whole room.
Yeah.
I get that's fun for the people who are doing that. Is it fun for everyone though? Like, I don't understand if in that situation, if someone's running through it and killing everything, I'd be like, this is crap. Like, this is not a good time.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Like, and that's it. That's are other people getting the ability to play? That's the thing, right? Like, does it matter what top and bottom cards you pick? Because if the end of the day, if everything's dead by the time you get there, then no, right? And that's where that becomes a problem. And whether that's a power level thing, whether it's an overtune thing, it could just be the scenario. Like, you remember the cooking one that we did where we chose poorly? We did that 3-player. I was on my crab on quite high level. There was your first scenario as the shackles, I believe, maybe second.
No, first.
And Phil was on the Blink Blade, I think.
Early Blink Blade, yeah.
Early Blink Blade, yeah. We fought heaps of things that had really low life, which meant you didn't get to do any of your stuff. Now, that wasn't because I was an overpowered crab, right? It was just because most of the monsters we fought didn't have enough life to survive long enough for you to do your thing.
Mm.
Like, it was just a bad scenario combination for that particular character, especially at that level,
Mm.
right? If you got that on a high level Shackles, I don't think it'd be a problem because you were doing a completely different kind of build where you were just putting in blowing everything up.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element as well of like not just taking one instance of it to see, and we have the discussion for the Blink Blade stuff has been over several scenarios, like, and mostly the boss scenarios.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was 2 or 3 that were just absolutely deleted, and again that was like great play on Phil because he absolutely killed it. Like he figured that puzzle out and he nailed it. But that's where that came from. It wasn't just like, oh, this one time this character did this one thing and it didn't seem great. So that's where, I think it's important to see that. Because I mean, from Gloomhaven perspective, I had some friends that played through a campaign and they had the Berserker, who one-shot a boss, right? Because that's what the Berserker can do with a really good draw. Now, would you say that the Berserker always one-shots all bosses? No. Right? So does the Berserker make the game worse? Or maybe that's a different conversation because of how they play. But again, you can't just say one data point and say that that's bad for everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, that group actually were like, whoa, that was crazy. Like, because it happened once. Well, that was awesome. Like, because it was a really cool moment. If it was every time, you'd be like, well, this is stupid.
Yeah. Depends on the goal, I guess. Because I can see people sitting there who, I'm a support, go to, oh, we won. Yes, you did everything and I healed you for 3 at range 2. But, we won. And that's all I want is progression and what do we get and what loot and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Not Frosthaven related anymore, but this can spill into other games and probably more competitive. I'm struggling to think of a cooperative game that may run into this issue, but I'm sure they do exist. But a couple of examples are that I can think of off the top of my head. Twilight Imperium, there's a faction called the Yssaril Tribes, and we've had 2 games now of them in it, I believe, and both times they won. And again, not so much the faction itself, but player problem or group problem. But I think that there was some talk about them a long time ago. And a couple of these examples coming up have been talked in various communities. But they've got their whole shtick is that, they can break rules regarding action cards. And action cards can be fairly game breaking. And they can steal other people's action cards. And they can hold as many as they want. And it's really potentially not fun for everyone else at the table, despite them doing everything according to the rules and playing it as it's intended.
And one of the things with them as well is that they can discard an action card, which they've hoarded heaps of, to delay their turn. And there's a really big element in TI about not having... you want to try to delay your turns as late as possible so that everyone else is gone and you can then react to how they've behaved. And so, you're right. It creates this non-fun situation of taking everyone's resources that they were going to use and then using them to not have a turn so that everyone else is done. And then you're like, great, cool. I'm just going to play a solo game now. Everyone else, this other 5 players at the table get to watch you spend 20 minutes to have all of your turns.
Yeah. And I think that the world champions in TI will probably say, no, they're easily counterable with X, Y, Z, etc.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your average group who just comes together to play this. They will encounter this. We literally were like, they're going to steal our action cards. I'm just not going to invest in drawing action cards. And I'm not going to play the secondary off politics. Take that. I don't have any action cards. That's not fun. You're making it less fun. Right?
But I think that's where the distinction between something being broken and busted or not, like overtuned or whatever it is, versus it's not fun. Because again, it's like you run into this kind of thing with collectible card games or card games, right? Like deck builders, is that you can have control decks which are very like negative play experience. That their whole thing, control decks are there to go, you're not having a turn, right? Like that's it. Like the whole famous kind of line for in Magic the Gathering of a blue control deck was like, draw, okay, go. Like you literally draw a card and say, okay, it's your turn, right? Because you did everything you wanted on the other person's turn, which was like, no, you can't do that. No, I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this in instant speed and all that stuff. So the whole game was about making the other person not be able to play. Right. And it was really effective because it can be an effective strategy against certain decks. So I think in anything that stops people being able to play the game that they've got there to play, like they've come together to play, I think that's bad. And if it's a faction thing, it's kind of really bad. And if it's like for the whole game, it's really bad, right? And that's it. If it's once per game, and I'm not talking about the power level of abilities, I mean the ability for people to actually like interact with the game, right? Then I think it's wrong. That's why skip a turn is like the worst design mechanic in any game ever. It's super lazy and it just says, "Hey, Daddy, you don't get to play the game that you're playing for a turn."
Yeah.
Like that's shit.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you've got a
it.
faction that is regularly doing that to people in any way, whether it's skip a turn or taking resources, like that can start getting into that MPE place, like just making it bad.
Yes. Really, really good points about that. Another example I have is in Blood Rage. Blood Rage is a area control card drafting game by Cool Mini or Not and designed by Eric Lang. There's a bunch of cards that you can draw from that are meant to be based after different Norse gods. And there's like sets of them that do sorts of stuff. And if you collect a lot of the cards from the one set, you're pretty set up because they synergize really well with each other, of course. And one of them is the Loki strat in Blood Rage. And this is something that, for a lot of casual Blood Rage players, tilts them to no end, especially with someone who knows about them. And the only way to really counter it, ultimately, is to hate draft, right? Is to literally draw them before the Loki person is collecting them so they can use it, which is not really fun to a lot of people. So it's a similar kind of thing where it's a faction or a card ability genre or whatever that's going against, I guess, the spirit of the game by trying something a little bit different where they want to lose and they want to die. And in order to stop it, you have to play, I don't know, into it by not being able to play your own game in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tricky. And I mean, you were asking about examples in a co-op like space. I think role-playing games is probably the one that comes to mind, which can have the biggest impact, and for a variety of different reasons. And sometimes it can be player-based, right? But a lot of times you can have characters or classes or combinations that make the game less fun for other people, whether that's because they're too powerful, whether that's because they take too long, whether it's because they do really weird things. And like just coming to mind, it's, you know, hackers in Shadowrun, which basically went, okay, group, I'm going to go play a separate mini game over here with the DM for 10 minutes while we work out this. You other 5 people who wanted to play the game, you can just wait. Now, role-playing games, you sign up for 6, 7, 8, 10 hours. We're playing rah-rah-rah, so you can deal with it however you want. But there are examples like that in games that are just not fun for everyone else that rocked up to the session because they don't get to do anything, you know? Or they're busted classes and they're too good, so they just remove the ability for people to do stuff like that, right? So I think role-playing games have is a co-op version of that has a capacity. And again, that can just not feel great when you're there and you're like, oh, I'm not getting to play the game as much as everyone else because that person is picked a class character or combination of things that make it not fun.
I'm not really as familiar as you when it comes to RPG and role-playing games. Is the DM's job meant to curb that or control that?
We could spend a whole podcast talking about that. Yes.
I was just asking. I'm not too sure. Yeah.
No. Essentially, yes. But you kind of like, it's like you have a contract with your group that everyone's there to have a good time, right? The problem where this stuff falls to pieces is when people groups don't. And I think, again, maybe this comes full circle back to Frosthaven. We've talked about how our group all get along really well. We all try to help each other. We have jokes, banter, and we kind of screw each other on certain situations, but nothing malicious. It's always like either accidental or like a lol. But a group that like really didn't have any of that playing Frosthaven, well, it's kind of, we've signed that social agreement. Like, hey, we're all here to have fun. So none of us are going to do anything overtly to make someone's fun less.
That's true.
Because we like each other, right? Role-playing has the same issue. If you have a bunch of people who just want to fight for stuff, right, the GM can have trouble controlling it.
Got you.
So yeah, it is. It can happen, and it is kind of their role. But
no, okay. I only had 2 more examples. I don't need to break them down, etc. But Viticulture is a Stonemaier game about making wine and building up. You know, it's a nice Euro game with worker placement and whatnot. There's a strategy in there where you can not make wine and you can just win from, I think, visitor cards and building a nice winery without making a drop of wine, which is okay. I know for a fact that there are people out there who have said seeing someone win that way is just not a fun experience.
Yeah, it makes you not want to play that game anymore.
Well, it's literally the heart of the game is making
Yeah.
wine. It's not show you my vineyard, the game, or anything like that. And lastly, there's a very, very Cthulhu Wars is one of my favorite games. There's a faction in there. It's not the lethargy one, although that can be counted. I think that's fine. I'm not worried about that. There's a faction
it makes it less fun.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But there's a faction in there that we've never played with because its reputation is so bad they had to actually remake some of the faction in a future, release and try to tweak it. It's called the Chocho. They're a light pink faction. I never let anyone pick them because apparently they are just not fun for the rest of the table. Ultimately, in a game like Cthulhu Wars, which is an area control, smash each other all over the map, they are the one faction they're the turtle faction, like the ultimate turtle faction. And if they aren't kept in check after like 3 rounds, they'll just win, right? That's what I'm hearing their reputation is like. And they're not fun at all for the vast majority of people who have played Cthulhu Wars with that faction. Because one person has to then go or coordinate an effort to be like, well, we're all trying to win, but can you stop waiting for a sec to go deal with that guy? Otherwise, he's going to win. But if that person deals with them, then everyone's just going to pick up the leftovers kind of situation. So it leads to this weird stalemate, bad feeling kind of thing where it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And everyone has a bad time.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, like I think it's an interesting thing to think about, and I am always super conscious of it at the table, not just for Frosthaven, but other games of like what is everyone's experience? Because I'm big on people having a good time, right? Like this is mostly social, we're playing a game that we want to play, but like there's a massive social element to it, regardless whether it's Frosthaven or whatever game we're playing. And if people are not having a good time, I try to make sure that they do. And
100%.
So when it was kind of brought to my attention, or I brought it to my attention, or I'm not sure who brought it up, but like I was maybe making it less fun for other people by taking too long on my turns. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that's something that I need to address, or I need to work out how to address it, right? Do I just need to be better, or do I need to look at less complex strategies and et cetera, et cetera? And I think I did a lot better with this ooze one, although there was less maybe decisions because it was kind of all in one room. So it'd be interesting when we play next to see if I have gotten any better at playing, or if it was just an I don't know, aberration of a simpler scenario.
No, you did extremely well on the ooze one. Like it was not even noticeable, right? It was great. It was just a great scenario. It was just a favorite. It'll show up somewhere maybe. We will wrap it up there. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. We will be back next week when, well, it'll be after Game Mania. So we'll have to work out exactly what's going to happen there in our recording schedule. I have not thought about that at all. So maybe we will not be returning next week. Who knows? We will work something out. I have been Daddy. I have been joined again by 3.Gaz. Remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.